I think if I'm being totally honest, 2020 has not been an easy year for me, and I don't think it has been an easy year for many of you either. But
the whole last, 6 months? I guess that's the thing. No one really knows. It becomes a blur, and your brain just kind of goes to mush. That feels very true for how my experience has been.
So 2020 has been definitely really challenging in a lot of ways.
It feels like this year has had a little bit of a out of control feeling.
I think when it first hit, there was tons of anxiety and nobody really knew like how bad is this gonna get, what does this mean, and how do we protect our family.
2020 has been a really heavy year. The mental strain that goes into having to process what's going on in the world right now. And I feel like I'm constantly second guessing myself as I try and keep my family safe.
I started 2020 with some pretty big plans. It was the year of my university graduation, and I had a month-long celebratory trip to Indonesia put in place. It didn't take long for me though to realize that those plans weren't necessarily going to work out exactly how I anticipated it.
And so we weren't bringing in any money at all, and all we were really doing was getting whatever the government was able to give us. We got by, but it was definitely really challenging and scary for sure.
I had to finish my university career online. My trip was canceled, and I began a 3-month-long unemployment period. Being immune compromised, I woke up every day in fear, and I went about each day in self-pity, always thinking about what I would be doing if COVID didn't exist.
I also started to kind of lose my touch with God a little bit, so I wouldn't get out of bed until maybe in the afternoon, and just kind of not having the motivation to do things throughout the day, which made me fall pretty far behind in school, and it just started to really build up and kind of have a heavy weight on me.
When it comes to church and working here at the church, I feel like everything that I used to assume and believe was effective changed, and I was left feeling confused, powerless, out of creative ideas, relatively demoralized of what do we do now?
It all seems so crazy and kind of things won't be the same. I think there's some truth to that. But I think that, I'm convinced that God is using this time to slingshot us into perhaps what's going to be the best days of our lives.
I think that God is teaching me to trust Him, to stop trying to do things all on my own.
God is teaching me leadership. He's teaching me to become a better leader in my marriage.
And what I've realized is that I don't notice when God is working powerfully through my weakness. In the moment, I notice when I look back. And so when I look back at this season, I see God's power everywhere. But I look back at all these faltering steps that I took, that we took. I look back at all the confusion and all the difficulty, and I remember that I did not feel powerful in those moments, but God was working powerfully.
I don't need to be chasing or running after anything or figuring all the things out. I just need to remember that I'm not alone, that God's presence is always with me. I don't need to chase it. I don't need to manage it. I just need to settle into it.
He's really shown me just how important it is to have a healthy home environment, both emotionally and spiritually. And that starts with me. That starts with my own emotional and spiritual health.
One of the things that God has really been teaching us through COVID has been how everything that we have, it can be taken away, but if we still have God, then we have everything that we need. He's going to take care of us.
God is teaching me that just because my so-called big plans were canceled doesn't mean God's big plans for me are. And I've learned, and I'm continuing to learn, to be simply present in each moment, right here, right now. To be grateful for what is right here and right now.
I know that God began a good work in me.
And through it all, He promises to finish that good work.
With Jesus, I know that the future is bright.
I know the future is bright.
I know that the future is bright.
I know that the future is bright.